I note as well the Iranian Supreme Leader is threatening US warships in the Gulf. Is he bluffing, or could there also be retaliation on that end too?
There's a lot of bluff, that's for sure, but I think if the Americans do strike, it's going to be comprehensive. They won't just be making the rubble bounce higher on the nuclear facilities. They will be doing things like going after the Iranian Navy, those ships which have the capacity to lay mines in the Straits of Hormuz. I think they'll also be going after the leadership of the Iranian Guards Force, and perhaps even the police and intelligence and internal security command and control system. And so what that means, Danica, is it's going to be a broad strike. It's not just going to be against a handful of nuclear facilities. And I think that's why we're seeing the Americans now engaged in a very substantial buildup of military capability. They have for weeks been flying in stocks with heavy transport aircraft, for example. So this is not going to be trivial, and it's going to be quite broad in its focus, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that Trump didn't pull the trigger on this earlier when you've got a regime that has ordered a shoot to kill on protesters. You mentioned the protesters. I'm surprised, to be honest, that it wasn't carried out, or something wasn't carried out sooner. So anyway, we'll remain to see what happens there. Let's talk about China. The US is also hardening its claim that China carried out a secret low-yield nuclear test, pointing to fresh seismic data picked up near one of their old test sites. So Beijing's coming out denying it as always. I guess, Peter, if it was a low-yield test, what is the strategic purpose for China?
So China is rapidly modernising and expanding its nuclear weapons arsenal, air, land and sea weapons. And in order to be able to do that, and for that arsenal to be credible, they have to test the weapons from time to time to demonstrate the fact that they work. We saw the North Koreans do this. Because of the massive expansion of Chinese nuclear capability, they will have to do low-level testing. These are not underground explosions of massive bombs, but they're testing components of those bombs, of the bomb architecture. And so I'm not surprised by it. I think the Russians will be doing the same thing. And basically, this is a product of both Russia and China now significantly trying to expand and modernise their nuclear forces.
Just on Ukraine, Defence Minister Richard Marles is warning allies to brace for a war that drags on for years, despite Donald Trump's promise that he'd end it fast. And he's signalling Australia and Europe need to stop the ad hoc approach and make support more regular and predictable. I find this interesting, Peter, because I recall once Donald Trump basically saying, we can't possibly give any more aid to Ukraine. We've given them enough, and this is now an unwinnable war. Is Marles right? Are we talking years still until this possibly ends?
Hard to say. It's difficult to see how either Russia or Ukraine can really sustain this forever, because this has been so damaging to both their societies. I certainly support Miles in saying that, we need to be arming and helping the Ukrainians to defend themselves. I think that's absolutely right. I wish, as Defence Minister, he'd been in a position to get his government to do a lot more, a lot sooner. But if he's been to NATO and he's now feeling some zeal, that's a good thing. I'd like to think he'd also be able to persuade his government to spend a bit more money on our own defence policy settings, because that seems to be the last area, indeed the only area of government expenditure, following from Adam's interview with you, where the government is being cost constrained. And so, let's fund our own defence first. But by all means, let's support the Ukrainians. I think that's important for Europe, and therefore really important for the security of democracies all around the world.
Wouldn't it be good if we were looking after our own backyard for once? Peter Jennings, nice to see you. Thanks very much for your time this evening.